Welcome everyone to our first edition of Drive Chat for 2022. It's our 6th episode that we'll be running. And the subject for discussion today is that about how we manage our fleet. Our two guest experts are Johnnie Marais, who's the General Manager Operations for Eqstra, and then JC van Heerden, who looks after the customer side. So what we're going to do is ask them just to give a very brief intro on themselves and about the company or their portfolio so that we can get an understanding of why we have chosen them to talk about this subject. JC, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what's happening with Eqstra there.
Yeah, thanks, Eugene, and a great opportunity to engage with you guys. And Johnny, welcome to the session as well. Yeah, from Eqstra side, I mean, well, from our side, basically, been with Eqstra for just under 15 years, and largely been involved in the sales environment and exposed to a lot of customer expectations and deliverables over time. So we've learned a lot of hard lessons. We've lost a few. We've gained more, we hope. And at the end of the day, it's really just all about service and delivery to those customers. In terms of our Eqstra environment, we manage around 60,000 managed contracts, and we have a lease book of just under 15,000 units across the different markets and classes, and also exposing ourselves and moving into sort of a SaaS solution for some of the other providers or competitive providers in the market. So really hell-bent on tech and moving forward in terms of innovations. Yeah,
that's great. Johnnie, tell us a little bit about what your portfolio you look after, please. And please, can you touch on the tire management? You're the expert over here. Eh?
Thanks, Eugene. Like JC said, there's about 15,000 vehicles. Of that 15,000 vehicles, a lot of that is commercial vehicles, not just light commercial, but I'm talking medium, extra heavy vehicles that we look after. To support that infrastructure, we need workshops that falls under my portfolio, panel shops, and like you mentioned, tire management, I think is something you quickly overlook, and we decided to embark on that challenge, and we now got our own tire management system and support structure with buckies roaming the country, doing wheel alignments, fitments, and so forth. Under my portfolio is also the remarketing of the vehicles that comes back from fleet, and lastly, it's the rental company, short-term rentals that supports the fleets in maybe peak seasons and so forth.
Okay, Johnnie, at some stage, if you can just bring in when we talk about your involvement with the used vehicles, because you've obviously got to market those, what you see in the market. I just want to offer a comment. One of the rigs that we run, it's a tanker, which is our rollover prevention. We sometimes go through a set of tires in a month, right? 6 wheels, but because of the harsh work that it undergoes. So please, you want to manage our tires a little bit better, be my guest. Let's just kick off with the first question. We're now 2 years into COVID. What have you found has been the challenges that from an operational point of view, you, Johnnie, found at Eqstra? And then maybe, JC, you can just comment on what you've seen from a customer's point of view. What has changed about their demands and their requirements? Johnnie, let's kick off with you.
If I can start, yeah, thanks. So I think we all, it was really something nobody could have expected, the impact that it's going to have on businesses, not just financially, I think operationally as well. The way that we doing business now is different to what we have been doing in the past, prior to 2020. Our operations didn't close really. We had to support the essential workers, customers. So our workshops and our panel shops were still 24/7. What we found in the lockdown started releasing the pressures starting to settle a little bit, is that face-to-face meetings, supply management becoming more of lesser personal and more how can I put it, less engagement of that. Yeah. And I think that it was quite important to get that back onto track. Just as an example, prices increased so much over the period. And if you weren't close to your suppliers, you would have lost that. You would have just started paying more and not understanding maybe where your cost is going. So to be close to their customers and understanding what the world is now pushing towards us, be it exchange rates or whatever the case is, to understand this is what's coming and then to manage that.
Great, thanks, Johnny. So JC, from your side, how did you see customers reacting to you?
Yeah, I mean, so Eugene, we run about a 2.5 billion rand book, and in essence, under COVID, a lot of customers went through cash flow restraints and challenges. And the first part of that 2020 section was to really say, how do we support customers and give them assistance in terms of payment reliefs, and assist them where they were experiencing challenges with their own suppliers and customers on the back end. So we went through that process and really just stood by the long-term relationships that we've had with our customers. And supported them, but post that, really it evolved into then a cost-conscious customer, even more so cost-conscious than pre-COVID, and every cent and penny made sense to the customer. And so in essence, you see reduction in fleet size, change in fleet application. Begs the question for European policies in terms of green vehicles. How does that affect South African markets? So it really evolved. But from a sales perspective, Johnny spoke to the face-to-face sessions. We were used to being face-to-face. We were used to being on the customer's doorstep, and you really have that relationship with the customer when you see them. And now suddenly you must speak to a dot on the screen. There's a completely different experience for the guys, and a completely different a value deliverable at that point, and that what maybe we realized to change our approach and really deliver a virtual value as opposed to now a tangible relationship that we have with that customer, and moved into more data analytics and delivering efficiencies and gains through that process, and that's really what we sort of found through 2020.
Okay, I noticed in one of the questions that we raised is the important role that data analytics plays. Can you just talk to the 3 top challenges that the operators have been asking you to solve? What type of role do you as a fleet management company, what are the 3 big things that you can ask to solve for them? Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I can kick off. I mean, at the end of the day, we spoke to data, and if you don't have transparency or visibility on that data, you can't really drive cost efficiencies or gains behind that. So you then can't manage your variable components, you can't manage your fixed cost components. So it's a huge influence in terms of having that base foundation to support that particular point. I think the other side of it is just knowing what the vehicle's purpose is. Where is it? For what reason are you driving that particular vehicle? What is not necessarily just the lowest cost per kilometer vehicle or efficiency, but at the same time, is it the most optimal cost or efficiency at that particular point for your particular market or servicing need to their own customer set? So that's what we really invested in terms of technology and reporting and analytics in terms of that particular area.
Can we talk to the second one, which was consolidation of data? You and I both know, all 3 of us know, that you've got operators with how many different systems in their vehicles. What have you done to resolve that? Maybe, Johnny, you want to field that for us?
Yeah, that's quite interesting. So, historically, you had lots of information coming into your databases, being it kilometers, usage. Now we're sitting with GPS data. You've got dots on maps. And how do you bring all that together to understand your cost and what your cost drivers? And in different applications, different cost drivers needs to be pointed out. In a rep environment, you want to see that the best routes is taken to get your customer quicker and maybe to optimize your time more efficiently. On a truck environment, that might be because you want to get past traffic. There might be riots like we had in 2021 with KZN. So, there's different things that you need to take in consideration just from that, and you can carry on. I mean, that's a conversation all by itself. Historically, you would take all the reporting, you'll get to a report and say, this is what the fleet does, but you want to know, why does the fleet do that? Is it the price increases that you had on tires? If I can go back to tires again, I mean, we saw 3 increases just in 12 months, which historically we didn't have. So you won't expect that unless you've got that data and you've got the information at hand.
Okay.
Just to add to Johnny's view there, just on the sales aspect, is we've always been focused on really consolidating our own information and data and presenting it to a customer. What you're seeing now in terms of, Johnny spoke to the dot on the map and telematics. OEMs are moving into that space in terms of providing that particular opportunity to customers. And at the same time, customers may have different portfolios with different providers. So, with ourselves, a bank or whatever. And it's also having the ability to do third-party data integration into a single platform to get a true or a real view of every cost component or every efficiency component in that process. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually sad to think that some companies who run big fleets think they can manage it all on their own. It's just clearly not possible. Johnny, can I just talk to you about the role of the procurement department today in the decision that relates to vehicle choices or the manner in which they operate their fleets? What are some of the challenges that you found?
I'm going to answer the question. I think it talks a lot to mainly in the commercial space. Look, if I want to buy a BMW, I know what color I want and I know what seat colors and so forth. On the commercial side and the worker type vehicles, buckies, to understand payloads, to understand the application, the terrain that the vehicle is going to be operating is different because we've got such a big spectrum of vehicles that we can select from. And then to add to that, there's such a big spectrum of type of bodies that needs to be that can be fitted, or trailer applications that can be done. So if you have a specialized department that can look after that, to understand the customer needs, understand the application, geographic area, and so forth, you can then really procure the vehicle and to build that body to the spec that maybe enhance that that customers experience. And maybe also then drive costs down, because I mean fuel being one of the biggest drivers in your operating cost. To focus on that and driver
behavior.
Driver behavior, and that's his place of work. So you want to make it as comfortable for him so that he can deliver at the best.
Okay, great. The one thing that I'd like to and I'm going to pose it so you can give it some thought in the meantime. There's a lot said about predictive analytics, about if you're managing data, how you can predict the way a driver is going to behave in a certain way. So if we can come back to it in a moment. But during COVID, can you give me a couple of good reasons why it made sense to get rid of your own fleet and outsource it to a company such as yours? What were the benefits that companies were finding as a result of that? JC, maybe you want to share with us?
Well, I think for one, I mean, you're investing that investment of cash flow into other areas of opportunity, or even surviving in some occasions under COVID. We had some large corporations approach us to sort of get relief, and that was even on an international scope. So yeah, I think, for one, if you're outsourcing, you're not using your own funding, or you're not absorbing your own funding lines, if that you can say that, and you're utilizing an experienced outsourced fleet provider in terms of that solution. I mean, and at the same time, it's not just the funding line that makes it important or cost effective or efficient. One can always quote interest rates. You're against the bank, you're against you have a funding line. It's really competitive and low difference. But the other value adds that come to that, how do you manage the vehicle in terms of accidents? How do you maintain that asset? How do you track that asset? How do you manage the data in terms of consolidation behind that asset? And that's really where we benefit, or we provide the customer benefit in terms of a full solution offering, in terms of our sales pitch or positioning. Yeah.
It makes absolute sense to deploy your capital in areas that you make money. And let's face it, you may make money. Well, yes, you do make money out of operating fleets, but it's not really a big money-making operation. Johnny, where do you see the data that we get in? Where do you see it going? How is that going to enable fleet operators? And what role can you as the fleet management company play in ensuring that they manage their fleets better as a result of that data?
Yeah, the days of compiling reports and pushing out reports, I think, is long gone. You need to now take that reporting and give insights, to understand what does that report say, and what can I do to give that operator the tools that's needed to be able to overcome that challenges. And that's not going to come from reporting. That's going to come from what's inside that reporting, how good is that data, and how powerful is that tool that you give them, not just the reporting. Consolidating all these tools together, I think, is the way to go. You can't just look at the GPS reporting, and you can't just look at the fleet stats. You need to bring all that together into one place, and then from there get the insights and then report on it.
Thank you very much. I've got two more questions because, and in fact, I'm going to propose that we run a second round a little bit later in the year, please, because there's loads of questions that we're not covering. Given the move toward ensuring that we're more carbon neutral, what are the developments that you see taking place in the fleet industry that's going to happen with vehicles?
If I can answer that, we at Eqstra, we started in 2012, in 2013, with a project where we looked at, so that the manufacturers, the OEMs, they will go and they will start with electrical vehicles, and we also need to see what is the trends. Is it autonomous driving that's maybe the first step, and then we move into electric vehicles, or the other way around? That the OEMs, they cover that quite well. I think on the auxiliary equipment, there's a big gap. There's very little development happening on the auxiliary side. We started with a project where we looked at just on the refrigeration, is to take refrigeration to the next step, where batteries, I mean, that's where technology is going, is to store energy and then to use that stored energy rather than to create energy as you drive. So we and I think that's really where we need to start focusing on auxiliary equipment that's also using combustion engines, is to try and bring that back to where the rest of the world and OEMs is going, is using electrical power.
Thanks for that. JC, to you, what do you see the demands from your customers? What are they asking from you in respect of this?
So, I mean, a lot of the international firms that are present in terms of Europe, have really pushed us hard to say, what is Africa doing in terms of our green vehicle initiatives and that sort of stuff. I think there's a zero emissions target set in terms of Europe. I think they've got the taxonomy policies in place in terms of having no combustion engines being available in terms of Europe. So, and those policies are really filtering through to South Africa in terms of our presence. Just in our environment, we've done some case studies and an analysis over time. The BMW i3s, for example, we already had in fleets and did case studies on them. And just the cost of those assets in South Africa are just too expensive right now to justify the move to electric, never mind the infrastructure challenges in terms of Eskom and available power. But once those things sort of settle and establish themselves in terms of sustainability, certainly fleets will move into your electric vehicle type solutions. And as we've seen with the likes of Toyota doing the hybrid braking recharging solution, coming through on a couple of those Toyota Crosses and those sort of things, it is evolving significantly. I think in the local government as well, there's a huge investment and talks in terms of changing some of the policies. And I think government has to lead the challenge on that as well, to create the opportunity for corporates to really drive, whether it be OEMs or even sustainable corporates like ourselves, to drive the electrification of vehicles in any case. Without that support, it doesn't help. Yeah.
Okay, good. Look, I know there's loads more that we can discuss, but can I just ask each of you to give a parting message to customers out there, why they should be looking at managing their fleets better, and what role you as an organization or similar to you would play in helping them be better and more profitable. Kick off with you, please, Johnnie.
A parting message. I think, you're going to have to really get close to your cost drivers. Escalations on different components is really can run away from that. So procurement is very important. Understand your suppliers, get close to suppliers, and know that the value that they can add to your business with good relationships.
Okay, thank you for that, JC.
Yeah, I think as leaders in the market, We've invested significantly in technology, and we continue to do so over, the next 5 to 10 years, and as the evolution evolves. But if you're investing your cash flow into your core operations as opposed to your fleet, and allowing us the opportunity to provide the value and the insights to drive your cost down, is really where we position ourselves from a fleet provider.
Great. So, folks, those who will be listening to this and viewing this, we've had the privilege of having Johnnie and JC talk to us about general matters. If you want anything more specific, please feel free to engage with them directly. And let's not forget the role that we play in changing driver behavior. So thank you very much both for being here. And as I indicated, please, let's schedule a second round at a later stage, because I know we're going to get customer questions from this as a result of what we've shared. So thank you again, and may you have a very successful 22 and all your customers that you look after as well. Take care.